Welcome to the Unity of Olympia podcast.
How many of you set New Year's commitments, intentions, ideas? There's one. Excellent. Two. Okay, there's a few more. Got it. I did too. My commitment is to live with the flow. Live in the flow of life. And that's our theme this year. And of course, emergence is part of that. So I just want to tell a little story on myself. I had this commitment. Pictures of yourself are sometimes distraction. I have this commitment, right? This is my commitment now in the morning. It's actually written down on a piece of paper that I read every morning. And so my plan for the day was to pack up the old new computer that doesn't work and to get it shipped off and to go get the new computer with the help of my friend Ted Clark to help me choose the right new computer that would work. And then live happily ever after. Make plans and God laughs. There you are laughing at me. So I packed up my computer, but in the boxes that it came in, the old new computer that didn't work, and got confused by the labels and the instructions and wasn't sure. So I brought it here to give it to my friend Kyle and figure out, so he could figure out what to do with it, which he did. Yeah. And then I went and I met Ted at Costco, and we picked up the right computer. We get to the counter, and the credit card didn't work. Okay, fine. Now, I had forgotten my Costco card, so I got myself a temporary card. They're great at that. But then when I walked out, I made sure to get the slip with the information about which computer I wanted to buy, but forgot my temporary card, and so I walked out. And then when I got a credit card that would work, so I was looking back, and I have no temporary card again. This is that. Now, here's the thing. I did get my new computer. My old new computer is gone. Everything is good. What happened was that, just like a river, sometimes there were big, huge boulders, and I had to go around it. Now, this morning I mentioned to the kids that Jesus did not throw those terrified people who thought they were going to die out of the boat. I did not emotionally get to completely live in the flow. But I did in my actions. I just continued to turn and say, okay, well then what's my next step? I didn't take it out on anybody. I wasn't angry with anybody. I did feel a little panicked when I lost my key card to the building here. But Kyle found that too. Asking for help is part of living in the flow, right? So this is my intention this year, and here's the other really fun thing that happens as I started to panic. Kyle looks up at me and says, "We're living in the flow this year." Thank you, Kyle. At the turn of the year, we have a burning bowl where we let go of things that we've released from last year and set some intentions for the new year. And then the white stone ceremony is a practice of emergence. What is it that's coming forth for me this year? What is the name that I would be called this year? And these are about living from within. So I was intentional about the title for this lesson not being living with intention, as if it is something separate, but living from intention, right? So that living from that flow is where I want to go rather than living with the flow. Now, I'm going to tell you, with is better than not. Right? So I was unable to live with the flow on an internal basis all the time. Anybody else have that happen? Don't raise your hands, nobody needs to know. But the truth is, the flow is never separate from me. The flow is foundational. I really enjoyed might be a strong word, Jason Carter's remarks at his grandfather's funeral this week. And I jotted down a few of them because I believe that Jimmy Carter, at least according to his grandson, was living with the flow of life, with the flow of God, living from that intention within him. He said, in my church we sing a song that says, from the moment I wake up until I lay my head, I will sing the goodness of God. And then Jason said, I don't know how many people in here can say that. I know I can't. But my grandfather can. From the moment that he woke up until he laid his head, his life was a testament to the goodness of God. And then he went on to list the many, many ways that his grandfather, President Jimmy Carter, did exactly that. He had the courage and strength to stick to his principles when they were unpopular. As a president in the 70s, he protected more land than any other president in history. 50 years ago, he was a climate warrior who pushed for a world where we conserved energy. I was a little girl, and my father was constantly saying, turn off the lights, put on a sweater. That was me, not Jason. Hold on. Distraction. He says that he never perceived a difference between his grandfather's public face and the private face of how he showed up. And that was for him integrity. And then he said this, in the end, his life is a love story. A love story about love for his fellow humans, about living out the commandment to love your neighbor as yourself. And Jason said, I believe that love is what taught him and told him to preach the power of human rights, not just for some people, but for all people. He spent his time living out of that love and that faith alongside the poorest, the most marginalized people in the world. And that work, again, has been based fundamentally on love and respect. The thing I didn't know that he shared, I mean, there were many things that many of us know about the presidency and about who he was, Habitat for Humanity. I did not know that the Carter Foundation has primarily almost eradicated a particular disease, guinea worm disease. When Jimmy Carter started, there were 3.5 million cases in humans everywhere. This is a painful disease that keeps people from their highest good. Any disease keeps people from their highest good. Last year there were 14. Wow! Right? He did it by partnering with the people in the towns and villages and inviting them into a partnership. not by feeling sorry for them, and it can't be eradicated with medicine. There is no medicine. It is about taking care of your feet. He invited people into a partnership to care for one another in their towns and villages. That is living from within. This is a real world example of what happens. His intention, I am sure that when he was a young man, that even when he became president of the United States, that his intention wasn't, I'm going to eradicate guinea worm disease. I mean, really. But then eventually, that became part of the outcome of his intention to love and respect humanity. His grandfather, or his grandson, Jason, says, he waged peace with love and respect. He led his nation with love and respect. To me, this life was a love story. From the moment that he woke up until he laid his head. You know, most of us live as if we are products of the world, and that the conditions of the world determine who we are and how we show up. Just like my little story of the computer day. We're going to call it that from now on. The kids are studying the 4 agreements for the next 4 months. This month they're studying be impeccable with your word. Right? So even when on the inside I could not, I was so grateful. I am so grateful to be able to say that I have evolved and grown to the point where I am not throwing stuff, or I'm not being angry at somebody who's driving. Somebody did get mad at me driving. He honked his horn, and as I turned and looked, because I was passing, or just driving the other direction, and I could see him, he was yelling at me. And I smiled and went, I'm so grateful for that. I smiled and waved. The thought of waving one finger at him did not cross my mind. And I thought about that later. That's because I really believe that's because my intention is to live from within. So we're going to be studying from In the Flow of Life with Eric Butterworth. Where's the Eric Butterworth stuff? Here it is. Eric Butterworth says in several places, in several books, I guess. Well, I'm not finding it. That's okay. I'll just tell you what it is. God is that which has its center everywhere and its circumference nowhere. Yep. God has its center in you, in me, in this spot in the air right this moment. That God has its center everywhere and its circumference does not exist. That is what we teach in Unity. It is a foundational teaching. Now that actually refers to God as a thing. But more than that, God is a practice, God is experience. We are living Godness. I believe that we as Unity with this foundational teaching that goes back to our teachers, I believe that this teaching is the wave of the future. As more and more people claim atheism, as more and more people claim agnosticism, I don't know if there's a guy in the sky sitting there ready to dole out punishment and reward. I'm pretty suspicious there's not. What I also don't know is if this presence that's showing up as me, that's showing up as you, has an intelligent mind that is separate from us. I'm suspicious that it does. Evolving spirituality, being open to the flow, being open to what is emerging in the world and in our lives, means being willing to not know, to be in the question. And then when something emerges as, yeah, I think this is true for me, that we try it on. What I believe is true is that God is this evolutionary impulse that is pulling, not necessarily pushing, though we might want it to push a few people here and there, but pulling us towards something we cannot even imagine yet. Some future of good. So for all of those out here, and even for that part of me, my doubting Thomas, that says the world is headed for disaster. Bring forward that Christ presence, that highest self, and say, peace, be still. That's living from intention. Because if God is living in and through and as us as individuated sort of expressions of God, we're each of us different, we're each of us bringing something different, we're each of us here to bless our families, our fellow congregants, our grocery store clerks, whatever it is that you are called here to bless, you are called here to bless. To be the blessing. Like Kyle. When I can't figure out how to put stuff back in a box. Unity's first basic principle is? I was watching a YouTube program with Brian Cox. He's a physicist from the University of Manchester. And this particular program is called The Wonder of Life. I enjoyed it so much, I sent a copy to Karen and asked her to show her kids because it was just fascinating. And he was so engaging. So if you want to watch a YouTube program that's fascinating and engaging, The Wonder of Life by Brian Cox. But what I want to tell you about is this thing that he talks about proton gradients. I love it when science starts talking about one of the things that Charles Fillmore, one of our co-founders, talked about. He talked about God is substance, and substance is available everywhere. Substance is the building block out of which all manifest life, right? You guys, me, anything that exists in material form, substance is the building block for that. Proton gradients is the name of that. It's called proton gradients. Isn't that cool? And then apparently that is on rocks out in space. That it just exists. I'm like, Charles called that substance. That's a nice name too, though, proton gradients. One of the people who watched this, who did a first review of it, Sam Wollaston from The Guardian, he said about this show, Wonders of Life. Life. That's it. Not a thing, but a series of chemical processes that harness the flow of energy to create islands of order, like a tree or me. Now, I'm okay with people thinking that I'm a wackadoodle. It's okay. But I do believe that this sacred experience is a God experience. This life experience that we're having is a God experience. It's sacred, it's holy, and I want to be as present to it as possible, and I want to call you all into that as well. Our first basic principle? Our second basic principle? God is, I am. There is a power, a presence that is living and moving and having its being. Number two, in and through me, as me. I think of it, this is my latest analogy for it. I think of it like this. There's a cell in my finger that doesn't know I exist. But that cell has life. It is a living cell. But we're all cells in the body of God. Eric Butterworth says that life is lived from the inside out, regardless of what's going on, inside or out. So, our third basic principle, I think I co-create my life. The way that I think, interacts with my world, and I am co-creating my life with you all, and with that power and that presence that lives with me. The way that I think. Eric Butterworth says, that's true, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. And that the way that we think can have positive affect, even in the bad and the ugly. And that practicing in the good, thinking that I'm living from this source of life, practicing in the good and the easy, gives us practice so that an experience, so that we can live from that source of life in the bad and the ugly, because bad and ugly happens. Anybody ever have bad and ugly? Okay, it's only bad if you call it bad, but I'm still that human. Today, I want to start this. All of you get a copy of this. It's a pamphlet from Unity Worldwide Ministries. Unity World Headquarters, excuse me. Yeah, there's a difference. This is about staying with intention. You know what your intention is. You keep your intention in mind, and then we will use this daily. I'll use it daily, and then you can use it daily. But today I want to invite you into this. Whenever I say I or me, please think of yourself. Today I am abundant. Abundance can be a difficult concept for some. Perhaps we inherited limited beliefs about abundance, whether about money or relationships or health. We may feel unworthy of a life of abundance and prosperity. One way to change our mindset about abundance is to notice all the beautiful things around us. Abundance is everywhere, particularly in the natural world. The awe-inspiring sunset outside our window, the majesty of the ocean waves that lull our busy minds. And then we're going to tie into today's daily word, finding gratitude for everything we have, rather than focusing on what we lack, is the path to feeling and being abundant. It may not come naturally because of old beliefs, but like a muscle, feelings of abundance grow stronger the more we use them. We do this through affirmative prayer and regular meditation. By gratefully acknowledging the many ways, large and small, that we have what we need, we create even more of what we desire. Once we train our minds to see abundance everywhere, we will be able to affirm, I am abundant, and feel it to be true at the deepest levels of our hearts. I think Jimmy Carter did that. There were other stuff that I learned about him that I didn't know, of course. One was that he was in the Navy, he was an officer after World War II, after World War II, and his father died. And he suddenly had to make a decision about whether he would go back home and take over the peanut farm or let it go. And it was a hard decision. His wife, the woman that he had such a love story with, Rosalind Carter, did not want to go back to the farm. She enjoyed traveling. She enjoyed the life as a wife of an officer in the Navy. But he decided he had to. It was the thing he needed to do. And when he did, and he gave up any pension, right? He went home, and this farm, the first year that he was back there, made a profit of $186. He just kept at it. He joined community boards and other community projects to make improvements, to give of himself, to care for people in his town and neighborhood. That is a life of abundance. He was a channel of God's good. Amen? Amen. You are a channel of God's good. Amen. Amen. I am a channel of God's good. Together? I am a channel of God's good. You know, it can be a stretch to say, I am God expressing as Terry. Anybody have a challenge with that? Yeah, sounds really arrogant. I believe that theologically. I believe that that is true. And I want to live that way, with that intention, that that is God living through me in all I do. And you guys too? Yes. That there is love, life, sacred honoring of other humans. I am a channel of God's good in the world. Together? I am a channel of God's good in the world. Now, I can say that without any hesitancy. Me too, I heard. Yay. I want to close with, because we're going to be turning to the Tao this month quite a bit too. When we talk about what God is, and when I talk, you guys can talk too. When I talk about what God is, as this flow, this is not a new idea, even though it may be a new idea for people who talk about Jesus. This comes from the Tao, pre-Christianity. The supreme good is like water, which nourishes all things without trying to. It is content with the low places that people disdain. Thus, it is like the Tao. In dwelling, live close to the ground. In thinking, keep to the simple. In conflict, be fair and generous. In governing, don't try to control. In work, do what you enjoy. In family life, be completely present. When you are content to be simply yourself and don't compare or compete, everybody will respect you.